This is one of a series of demos that depict the kind of industry solutions built for today, but with an eye towards Longhorn. In this demo, you'll see some innovative work being done by our ISV partners, Acela and Keyhole. Acela is a leading provider of state and local government solutions, and Keyhole has pioneered advanced 3D interaction using geospatial information. They came together to produce a next-generation emergency response system with consulting help from IdentityMine. We're going to see the way governments provide a new level of service to citizens and business through the connectivity of web services and the insights you get from business intelligence. And in particular, we'll see how a city brings together its building inspectors, government agencies, utility companies, and citizens to respond to an emergency with the insight you get from having everyone connected. This walkthrough will show an inspector offline in the field using InfoPath to quickly complete damage assessment forms. These forms trigger updates in both the Emergency Operations Center and the gas company. We'll see how EOC managers assign resources based on business intelligence. We will then see how Longhorn can help Emergency Operations Center managers integrate business intelligence into intuitive visualizations that help them take action. Finally, we will complete the Everyone Connected scenario by showing you how citizens stay informed with a personalized view of all actions related to their property. The first part of this demo will focus on technologies available in 2005. We will focus on two key areas: the richness of the smart client applications you can build using Windows Forms based on the 2.0 version of the .NET framework. We will also focus on the new features available in SQL Server 2005. All components of this application use XML-driven web services for simplified connectivity. We will also show how the new Click Once fundamentals make deploying a smart client application as easy as visiting a web page. Let's start by logging in as a city inspector who's at home on their tablet PC. They're going to start a normal day of going through and looking at building inspections. Thanks to ASP.NET 2.0, he has a personalized city portal that uses web services to aggregate his inspection assignment and job-related information. Now our inspector can even customize the portal to suit the way he works. Built-in support for identity and personalization make it easy for each employee to customize the portal to suit their tastes. In this case, the inspector is adding a new web part that contains local news. In addition, ASP.NET makes it easy to support drag-and-drop customization of web pages. Let's watch as the inspector drags a weather part up above the local news part. This is great, but it's not much help when we're offline in the field. Fortunately, going mobile is seamless. Watch how Click Once deployment makes it simple to update the client software we take into the field. This is no hassle maintenance. The system checks to see if the client software needs any additional updates, then launches the application. So what did that software update just give us? Well, it gave us an extremely capable connected smart client. You know, this stuff used to be science fiction. Using advanced technology now from Keyhole, it's easy to create an application that integrates geographic visualization on top of your connected system. Now on his tablet PC, the inspector has all the GIS data, building information, and aerial imagery he needs nicely cached directly on his tablet PC. All of this has been assembled using web service calls. What you can see here is the ability to manipulate the geographic information in any way you want to. You'll see that it's a 3D representation that you can zoom, drag, rotate, or tilt in order to gain more information. Let's look at one of the properties in anticipation of going to that location. In this particular case, we're going to select 1500 North Deer Crossing Road. The inspector selects that property, and the application will automatically navigate to that particular location. You'll notice that we zoom directly in, and as we zoom in closer, we get additional detail. Now, business intelligence isn't just about points on a map. Let's look at the additional information that we can overlay onto our visualization. How about the water lines? Where are the water lines located near this particular property? Well, one click will give that inspector all of that critical data. Here we see the water lines showing up directly in relationship to the property we're about to inspect. Well, how about parcel boundaries? Let's take a look at what the inspector can actually see. There you have it. Again, the inspector can overlay that information to understand all this data in context. And the most amazing thing about all this is running real software that's available now. Of course, as an information worker, that inspector is part of a whole connected process. That's especially critical in times of crisis when agility matters most. Let's see how the Emergency Operations Center manager assigns an emergency inspection to our inspector, which immediately will show up in his to-do list. Using secure web services over the public internet, you'll notice, looking back on our inspector's tablet PC, that the emergency inspection pops up at the very top of the inspections list. So now what we're going to do is head out into the field. We're going to unplug from the network, but our inspector still has full access to all the information needed for efficient inspections even while offline. That's because our inspection is locally stored on the client using SQL Server Express. And when we click on the InfoPath form, it's automatically populated with inspection data from that database. Now notice the built-in ink recognition found in InfoPath Service Pack 1. This comes for free, no programming is required, and any entry field expands like this with ink input. Now the inspector has discovered a gas leak, so what we're going to do is draw a very highly detailed diagram of exactly what the house looks like. Now we're going to diagram exactly where the gas leak has been located at. And in addition, the inspector has noticed that the foundation is cracked in the house, so we'll make a note of that too. When the inspector saves this document, remember, we're still offline. When the information is saved, it's stored locally in SQL Server Express. Once the inspector reconnects into the network, it will automatically trigger an event which will fire off a work order request to the gas company, as well as transmit the inspection data back to the Emergency Operations Manager. This one inspection is going to trigger information updates across multiple systems and organizations. On the Emergency Operations portal, notice the page is updated with the inspection status and a thumbnail of the ink diagram. We can even magnify the image with a simple hover over. In addition, because we've flagged this property as having a gas leak, the gas company's ERP system receives an emergency work order to shut off the leak. Both the EOC and the gas company respond immediately to a single event in the field. That's the value of secure, reliable web services across trust domains. Now the EOC manager gets the real-time insight he needs to take action, scheduling inspections, dispatching relief workers, coordinating with police and fire department. Here we see real-time reports on inspection status, giving us an at-a-glance decision-making capability. But what if we need to go deeper? Here's where the built-in reporting services in SQL Server 2005 enable easy export of business intelligence into any format. In this case, we're exporting to an Excel spreadsheet. Microsoft is committed to move business intelligence out of the realm of specialists and into the hands of everyday users. In this case, we can use SQL Server 2005's reporting services to easily export data into Excel, which allows everyone involved to use a familiar tool, but to automatically populate that data so that it's easy to visualize, to export, or to pivot in any manner we choose. But how can we make this tabular data intuitively actionable? With SQL Server 2005, we can do precisely that using any .NET programming language like C# or Visual Basic.NET. In this case, we can take traditionally flat tabular data and render it as a GIS overlay. Rather than looking at tables and charts, we can see where resources should be deployed. In this example, we're looking at population centers that require evacuation, as well as what the evacuation rates are at each one of those centers. This is the true value of business intelligence when everyone is connected. Of course, everything you've seen so far is built today using Visual Studio 2005 and SQL Server 2005. So the question is, does everything change in Longhorn? Well, no it doesn't. In fact, let's look at the Longhorn version of this application working with the exact same web services and data. Let's briefly look at the architectural features used for the Longhorn part of the demonstration. We capitalize very heavily on the presentation features of Avalon, along with the advanced communication services supplied by Indigo. In addition, we leverage the features of WinFS, available as a beta when Longhorn is released, to give us easy access to traditionally disparate data islands. Let's launch our Longhorn application now. We've used Avalon, Indigo, and WinFS to add presence, location, and 3D data visualization, all driven from the same web services used in the first part of the demonstration. You'll notice that the application behaves similarly to the previous version. We can still zoom, rotate, and tilt. We can also overlay additional GIS data. For our evacuation data, we've added a third dimension to our bubbles to convey the extent of the damage in addition to the number of evacuations. By leveraging the features of Indigo and WinFS, we can identify the aggregate view of all our inspectors, observing where they are in real time. We can hover over each inspector to get a quick view, or just click on one to get additional details. Notice as we zoom in on our inspector, we can quickly see their location, plus have a variety of ways of communicating with them. We can also see the status of their inside inspections, allowing us to understand the workload of each inspector at a glance. Let's take a quick status view of each inspection zone and zoom into the troubled areas that are indicated by the red bubbles. In the first case, we see that we have a good evacuation rate and a low inspection backlog. This is indicated by the blue bars on the graph. You'll notice this graph is interactive as well. We can turn off and on different data sets, allowing us to selectively assess the information. In the second case, we see that pending inspections are rapidly increasing. We can rotate the 3D graph to help us understand the data better. In this case, we're going to click on the red icon for some context-sensitive actions that are specific to this visualization. Here we see a list of pre-qualified choices pulled from WinFS based on that application's filter and the status of the contact. This allows us to quickly tap into our pool of available resources. Citizens can also stay informed by visiting a custom mobile portal that gives them complete visibility to their inspection status, actions being taken, relief resources, etc., all from the convenience of a pocket PC phone or smartphone. We've shown you how you can build connected systems using Microsoft technologies, how you can bring real-time business intelligence to your own processes, and more importantly, how our software advances will make it easier for everyone to be connected. I'm David Weller, and I want you to be an evangelist on the road to Longhorn. Have fun.